So yeah, first of all, it's been pledged like it's $100 billion per year by 2020 from 2013 onwards. So it's been a commitment from developed countries to support adaptation and mitigation in developing countries. And first of all, no, it's not enough, but it's a first step. And we want this $100 billion to be met from public sources only, and there will be also other types of sources that will complement the scales of the needs. But it's true that the scales of the needs are times higher.
I mean, what measures can you ensure if a country says, yes, I'm going to give $20 billion, and everyone throws their hands up and says, yes, that's fantastic, well done, how generous. I mean, what measures are applicable to a country that's made the promise and then perhaps doesn't deliver? What can we do about that?
Well, first of all, we need countries to really stick to their promises, and how can they do it? There's financial mechanisms that can be put in place. There's been a lot of discussion on what's called innovative finances, which is basically new mechanisms that would raise finance for a number of issues, development, but also climate. One of the issues and one of the sources of innovative finance is the financial transaction tax, and we've been hearing a lot about it in the past years. And for example, now in the EU, 12 member states are going to implement one, and we now need them to commit to allocate a share of this FTT, 25% to be exact, we're calling for, to climate, and notably through the Green Climate Fund, which is still empty here in Doha.
I mean, okay, maybe 100 billion isn't enough, but it's still a huge sum of money. How do we also ensure that the money is spent where it needs to be spent, whether it gets into the right hands, and that it's basically as effective as it's planned to be?
Well, we also need to strengthen the way we monitor and we report the money. So we need to ensure that the money goes where it's most needed. And we're calling for notably the money to go to mitigation and adaptation. And one thing that we're calling for is to strengthen the allocation to adaptation, because this is where the most urgent needs are for developing countries. So this goes into how you finance the project, but also how you report it, so we can monitor that the money is indeed going to the right place. And for now, we see that adaptation is still strongly underfunded. So we're also watching as NGOs that the money will go where it's been promised and where it's needed.
I mean, are these issues being addressed adequately here in Doha and in the wider negotiations? Is enough attention focused on the money? Because simply without the money, not much happens. But do you feel that enough attention is focused on the issue?
Well, there's growing attention on the issue, but there's still lack of political will. Developed countries are keeping on repeating that money will continue. Well, good, but it's a first step, but it's not enough. It doesn't only need to continue, it needs to be scaled up, and all the countries need to know how much, by when. They need predictability, they need reliability of finance, and so we need still more attention, more political will to move on this issue.
Right, and is that coming? I mean, what's the minimum you would like to see out of Doha, out of COP18 by the end of this week with regards to climate financing?
Well, the minimum we're expecting is at least clear commitment to deliver on midterm finance, which would be a 2013-2015 package of $60 billion, and this would be the first step toward achieving the 100 billion goal. So this is one first deliverable of Doha, and we're also calling for political momentum and a political space for the years to come, because not all the negotiation on the 100 billion will have taken place in Doha. So we also need countries to give clarity on how they're going to continue this high-level political discussion that is needed. So we need a high-level political space for ministers and for countries to discuss and to commit.
I mean, a lot of excuses being given in relation to the economic climate that we're living through at the moment, the crisis in Europe, North America, elsewhere. Is it an adequate excuse? Is it just an excuse, do you think, when countries say, look, we've got other problems here, we're sorting out our own economy, we can't quite afford it now? Or is the issue of climate change, does it supersede that? Is it much greater than an individual country's short-term economic problems?
There is a financial crisis, and we're not denying it, but it's also why we're calling for innovative sources, because, for example, these sources could help deliver money for climate without really putting too much pressure on national budgets, for example. So yes, there is a financial crisis, but there is a very urgent and broader climate urgency, so we need also political will to go beyond the short-term concerns that are very, very true and very legitimate, but to deliver more on the promises that have been made.